I didn't want to wreck him. It just I had to stay on the track, and he didn't give me any room. It just, we both collide. That's the only thing I feel bad about. I'm more upset with Greg Biffle. He's the most unprofessional little scaredy cat I've ever seen in my life. He wouldn't even fight me like a man after. He needs a freaking whooping. I'm going to give it to him.
Good day, race fans, and welcome to the Intentional Wreck Podcast, the podcast made by race fans for race fans, from the casuals to the lifelong gearheads. My name is Jeff, and I'm here with my friends Corey and Finn. And my God, it's been a while, boys.
Yeah,
we took a little hiatus there, closer towards the end of the season. Life happened a little bit. We kind of got some other things going on, and I don't know if you guys may realize this, but honestly, like, doing a podcast for a sport whose season stretches from February all the way through November every single week, while trying to do, jobs and kids and life and just, like, marriage and just everything else, it can it takes its toll, and sometimes you need to take a break. So we weren't always great about getting in there every single week. Things kind of broke up a little bit, but we are back. We've got a new season, and some of the things have remained the same. I just want to remind everybody that you can find us on Twitter and TikTok under the handle @IntRecPod. And we are Intentional Wreck, in case you forgot. And we've got plenty of stuff that we wanted to talk about today. We are now post-Clash as of this recording, about a week later. And, well, it happened. That was a thing that went down, strangely enough, super quick for the first half, and then it got real clashy there at the end. What did you guys think?
Well, how about NASCAR goes to LA and a monsoon comes? How about that? It never fails. Cool events happen and rain shows up.
Yeah, I don't know what to do. I mean, I normally blame NASCAR a lot with like putting Dover where they put the Dover race. Like that's a big rain time area for Delaware, but I mean, I would say it's fairly safe to assume LA is not going to be the worst at any given moment,
Yeah.
and it was brutal. So, but they got the race in.
I mean,
I like the call by NASCAR. I do.
Yeah.
Just obviously we can't do that for points races, but this is just one of those things where it's like, let's just do it. Let's get racing. It could have been easy to cancel it.
Yeah.
There's
you just kind of like the way they were able to throw it together. All the credit in the world to all those teams for being able to bring things together almost literally at about an hour's notice. I mean, I'm sure there was plenty of talk. People were watching the radar, trying to figure things out. But there was essentially news broke, and within 2 hours, cars were on the track and they were getting ready to roll. I mean, to put that together and make that happen, especially with some of the extenuating circumstances that exist around running cars in a football stadium. I got to give NASCAR a lot of credit for being able to make that happen. And I agree with you, Finn. That was the right move.
Well, I think
that night.
It gave the race like a natural sort of tension too, because it was like hey, we just got to do this. Like they don't have the extra day of prep. They didn't get all that extra time to work on their cars and whatever. The drivers were not caught off guard, but rushed maybe a little bit on their usual sort of, routines that they do on race day and whatever. And it was just, it had a good tension. It was a good race. Like it was an enjoyable race to watch, I thought, honestly. I mean, I know, Jeff, it's not your thing, but like
I'm a Clash hater. I'm sorry. Like, don't get rid of it. This isn't me knocking it. It's just like I never really take the Clash seriously. I understand. Like, if I was there, I would love it.
Yeah.
Like actually going to this event, that would be a lot of fun. I could enjoy that. But just in general, from a TV perspective, it ends up being kind of meh for me. But I mean, I understand. I would love to go at some point. It doesn't quite hit for me. But we're still at this point to the points we were already making. Like it's death, taxes, and if you have a drought anywhere near your area, schedule a damn NASCAR race and you will get your rain. The sky will open up
Uh,
all over your city. Make sure you get NASCAR to your town if you need rain.
Yep.
I think if I could
yeah.
throw one more thing in here, I think that the issue with the Clash is how short of a track it is. The novelty of it. This is our third year doing it at the LA Coliseum. I think we're kind of over that in that regard. I'd like to see, because there's short track racing, and then there's 45 miles an hour, right? Like it is extremely slow, and I struggle. It doesn't, or not Nashville, but where they did the All-Star race last year? If they
North
fix all the
Wilkesboro.
pavement
Wilkesboro.
stuff, North Wilkesboro, right? That would be better. Martinsville, I don't have issues with that because we're at least getting up to speed. What makes this sport so good is we're taking these boxy cars that just don't want to turn, or they're just, not very easy to handle, and we're throwing them in the corners at 200 miles an hour or 180 miles an hour.
Yeah.
We're asking these guys to do a lot. Then you take them on road courses where they're optimized now, but historically they didn't want to pass. They didn't want to throw that. And even in short tracks, just like a lot of braking for these big, heavy cars, but they're not really getting up to a speed where I feel like it's enjoyable. I would like to see next year's, we're going to talk a little bit later about the schedule, but why don't we throw a dirt track for the Clash?
Would love that.
I mean, I think if you're kind of apprehensive to making one of the in-race schedules the thing, well, put us or in-race schedules a dirt track race, then do it as the Clash. Let's do it on a typical thing. Now we don't have to worry about fitting the full field, because that was the issue with Bristol, right? Is we had to do Bristol dirt because we couldn't do other tracks. So because it was the whole
you're not
field.
gonna do Eldora with the whole 36 car field.
But we can do it
Right.
with 20.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
And now all
yeah.
of a sudden it's a way less of a, it's way less.
Well,
of
and
its
that makes the
novelty.
heats a lot of fun.
Hey,
I mean, when
sign
you
me up
like
for
if you
that.
brought the car out there and you're actually not going to run,
Right.
that makes the heats,
Right.
the stakes get a little higher there.
Right.
And, so there's a lot to it. And it's funny you brought up the speed, Finn, because I think that's a big piece of it for me, is that we're just not really seeing that, high acceleration. And it's not in the same way that you get in short track racing.
Mhm.
A buddy of mine who was tuning in for one of his first NASCAR events in a very while. He's a big race fan, but
Right.
for the most part, NASCAR escapes him. He's more of an IMSA sports car
Sports car
kinda
guy. Yeah.
And he was texting me throughout the race, and I was telling him, I was like, yeah, this should be fun. The Clash is what it is. It's a fun little event. It's a good way to get you, it kind of whet your appetite for the season.
Yep.
And at one point during the race, he was going like, yeah, this is fun and all, man, but I drive faster than this to work in the morning. Like,
Yeah, but
I mean, we
but the
kinda
Clash is about the smash factor, though. It's not about the speed. It's about the smashing.
Yeah. Well,
Smashing
historically, again, and historically, Corey, it's always been the pole winners of the year prior.
Yeah.
And it was just a mini Daytona race. It was like a
Yeah.
super speedway. And then
Right.
they mixed it up one year. They went and did the road course. And honestly, if you got time, go to YouTube and watch the Clash on the road course at Daytona, because that was super sick. It's the only NASCAR race we did at the Daytona road course. And then
I'll definitely go back and watch that
yeah,
for sure.
super fun race. But let's talk about this race. So obviously the rain played a factor in the timing, but it didn't affect the race. Toyota looked really good. Ty Gibbs looked extremely dominant, but he just fell victim to a weird late race caution. Denny, sitting in third, made the perfect move, let those guys slide up the track, slid right under him. They made a lot of changes this offseason to the car. The first thing they're trying to do is not eliminate, not ban, but they're trying to work it to where shifting isn't a thing. And they said, if I recall, Chase Briscoe was one of the only dudes shifting over the weekend, and he
Yeah.
wasn't any quicker than anybody. That's a step in the right direction. Second, I know they did some stuff with underneath the car and stuff. So they really focused testing this year. And I think while the Clash is a hard tell out the gates, the Clash was pretty racy, and those cars looked like they were sliding off the corner. And that's all I want.
Mhm.
I want them to have to really get in the gas, and they're moving that thing around. So Denny makes a good move. I want to make a note before Jeff talks about Denny's win. The Toyotas look very good, just body-wise. The cars themselves, the nose of the Toyota, that's not a Camry nose, I'll tell you that. I have not seen a single Camry that looks that slick driving around
yet.
out here.
You're about to.
Yeah, they got them sauce.
You're about to.
Is
Yeah.
that what the new ones look
The new
like?
Camrys are sick, man. Yeah, even the road ones they're sick.
I'm just thankful for this moment here, so we can hear Finn give it up for the camera guys right now.
Yeah, yeah.
I do like that. But to the
There's a reason
to
I'm a
the
camera
point-
guy now. We'll
Yeah,
talk about that guy
exactly.
later.
Finn's a camera guy now. Finn's Team Toyota. Welcome to the squad, Finn.
Fucking
But
Chevy.
yeah,
Look,
I'll say this: Ty had a rocket. Even on that short track, he was leaving people in the dust. There were multiple points. There were multiple points during that race where he's coming around 4 on his way into 1, and everybody else is just getting around 3.
Right.
And I mean, you usually don't get that kind of a separation, especially like just on a track that short. So that
He was
was
catching
really
lappers in
interesting.
like 12 laps. Like,
Right.
it was insane. Yeah.
Lap traffic became a factor so fast in that race, and it was very interesting to kind of see that go. Another point is Denny Hamlin did beat all your favorite drivers again, and did it here at the Clash to start things off. I would much prefer it to happen at the other end of the season multiple times. But I will take whatever wins and joy that I can get, particularly after the way the last 2 seasons have ended. But
Well, hold on.
the
To
other
be
thing,
clear, though, this does not count for his win total, right? We don't count this at all.
As
Okay.
far as
Alright.
I'm concerned, exhibition
Right.
races do
officially
that.
or unofficially,
Okay. All right.
Whatever,
I'm
you know.
just looking for
Yeah.
clarity on that. Yeah. We don't.
No,
he's not
there's
at
no
52.
points,
He's at
though.
51. Right. Okay.
yeah.
All right.
So yeah, there's that. What do you guys think of Harvick in the booth? I didn't mind it. I thought he did a pretty decent job.
I just don't. I don't get it yet. Like he's over talking still about like specific things that I feel like maybe he should be dipping his toe into. It was his first time in the booth. I've never done it, so Lord knows I don't know what I'm talking about. But he seemed to have a weird vibe with Clint. I also, I don't know. They're friends, right? I think they were teammates.
Maybe
For a
I was
while.
gonna say I don't know if that's Harvick or if that's Clint, and I
just
I
being
just,
weird. Yeah.
Yeah, like I don't know. I mean, it's no secret that Clint's Clint. You know,
He's a goober, yeah.
like he's just kind of
Yeah.
he's got a way about him, and I don't know what happens when he gets other guys in the booth, because you sometimes get when they do guests in the booth or they get somebody else that's in there. For the most part, if somebody is going to like cause a little bit of friction, in most cases, it seems like they tend to grind against Clint a little bit. I could be wrong on that one. I think, Finn would probably agree with me on that case. I mean,
Well,
it-
what I think NASCAR is lacking in its broadcast is true in-depth look, right? You get the guys like Steve Letarte, and they do a good job with like the breakaway car and talking about strategy and stuff. But what I think NASCAR is really lacking is a true driver's input to how to tackle the track, right? And what you'll get is they'll say something like, well, here in Daytona, you really got it, or Darlington, you really got to ease in the corner. It's really tight. You really want to interload, come high. I get that, but I don't think the fan is registering that. And also, that isn't telling the story of the race. What I kind of wish we would do is I wish that NASCAR had like maybe a Harvick. Obviously, Harvick's going to be a guy they want to put in front of the camera. Harvick is really well spoken. But I wish they had a driver type personality who wasn't meant to be the commentary of the race, in that we're talking about the race or whatever. But I would rather that be a situation of this guy's off to the side and he's scanning the radios and he's listening to drivers talk and to the adjustments, right, throughout the race. Or he's looking at that data and going, oh, he's lifting a bit early. Oh, all right, why is this guy so much quicker than everybody else? And they kind of get it. But I wish there was a way we could use all that data, because the problem with us versus other sports is the entirety of our sport is not on the screen while it's happening, right?
Yeah.
There are 30-something unique stories on race day, and everybody's going through their own thing, and the camera isn't viewing all it. You're only viewing whatever they have. So I wish they would tell the story from a technical perspective a little bit better, in terms of kind of what's he doing now? Why is he a little bit quicker? What is that, and then maybe using that data to supplement that. But that would require that person off screen, and then they go, let's check in with Kevin Harvick down in the basement, and it's just Harvick with a bunch of screens going, I've been looking at SMT data like
Right.
well, so here's
honestly,
the thing,
let Clint do that. Clint does sound like a crazy
you know what?
doomsdayer.
You've nailed it there, I think. You got to get Clint out of the regular booth and just let him get weird with like the real nitty-gritty drivery stuff.
Well,
Right.
and maybe
Maybe
that's
that's
what
the
it
move.
is too, right? Because
Yeah.
he's almost always the first one. How many times do you hear over the course of the first half of the season? Tell me about your hot rod. You hear about it multiple times, through the season, and maybe that's the spot for him. I mean, maybe
Right.
that's what it is. Because let's also be clear, based on what Finn's talking about here. Yes, we understand that when you get your folks that are down in the pits, when you get your Jamie Littles of the world, and you get your Ruts of the world for NBC, and you get Pockrass occasionally, like yes, they're coming back with some of the feedback by what they're hearing on the radio, but the snippets are so small and they're usually pretty vague. It's usually, we're hearing out here right now that those tires are starting to wear down really quickly, so they're going to want to change them. And I mean, what big
Get it.
NASCAR fan that's been watching for any period of time is looking at that and not going, well, yeah, no shit. Like it's not as though it's not as though in-depth informative reporting isn't happening down there, because it absolutely is.
Right.
Those folks do a fantastic job. But at the same time, trying to get some kind of an avenue for, like you described, all of those storylines that are happening. I mean, especially if we could hear some stuff that's going on more so in the back of the pack or from the smaller teams that may not have that same star power. I understand it's a broadcast. You got to you have to put the Chase Elliott's and the Larsons and Denny's and the big names out there on the marquee. But I would really be interested to find out, hey, what is it that is making it so Corey LaJoie's car isn't getting there compared to those other guys that are up there in the front, and try and understand what some of those disparities are. Maybe that could be an improvement, and maybe getting that, feedback from a driver who was like Harvick could be great for this, because he was on the track last year. Having somebody that was in a car that recent could be good. But this also kind of leads a little bit into something that I did want to talk about next. We're going to be talking about some in-house maintenance, some spring cleaning, so to speak, in regards to the actual show itself. Any people who've been listening to the show throughout last season kind of got used to some format shifts and got used to some segments that we were playing around with and some things that we wanted to do. But what we're deciding to do this year is we're going to do less frequent episodes. You're going to hear from us every couple of races as opposed to every single race. And we're going to supplement more of that with a little bit more short form content. So you're going to see more activity on the TikTok. You're going to see more activity on Twitter or X, whichever you prefer there. You're going to see a few more things coming out from us over the course of the week that is going to end up being you're going to see more stuff interspersed as opposed to having to wait for an episode every single week. You'll be able to hear from us on that. And it gives us the ability to talk about recent news, use some of the same segments that we and other folks tended to like in more unique ways that generally, I think, give the credit that it deserves to the segments. Some of the things we were talking about doing would be what we're calling Finn's Tech Talk. So Finn would actually give us the opportunity to get a little more in depth with some of the things that are going on with the car themselves, something that might have happened within the race that breaks a little further into the technical realm. I personally, being somebody who has an affinity for the past and the historical and all the things that enrich the sport, you'll hear me talk a little bit more about some of the more historical races, some of the more historical facts of some of the tracks that we're going to go to. I will give you some more in-depth information about the tracks themselves, some of the more important figures in NASCAR, some of the things that make the track significant. Corey's going to get in here with some iRacing and start laying down some laps, particularly at the tracks that we're going to be covering on the episodes, and try and break in some more information as far as what you actually should be doing if you're in the car, and get more of a POV from the drivers and what they can generally expect out there. So yeah, we've got a few different factors. We will be doing another fantasy league this year, but we're probably not going to do the victory lane thing. I mean, as most people know, when it comes to fantasy, everybody loves fantasy sports, and fantasy football is exciting, and fantasy sports are exciting. But the most boring thing in fantasy sports is listening to somebody else talk about their fantasy sports team. So I think we can go ahead and bypass that factor. So
We're still doing it for sure because I love the NASCAR Fantasy Live thing. It's just
Yeah.
not going to be it's not going to be a part of the show. We may
Yeah.
do, social media content, shout out winners, stuff like that, but yeah,
Right.
the idea basically is more direct to you guys content via your favorite social media channels just to kind of and frankly, just to be totally honest with you guys, it lessens the burden on us, right? Because it allows us a little more freedom in our schedule to kind of do our own thing when we're free instead of all three kind of sitting down together and doing it. This takes us an hour and a half, 2 hours to get up. So, yeah, the idea is you're going to get more content. You're just going to get it kind of spread out over time more so than in big chunks.
Adding to that, you'll also have more opportunities to actually interact with us over
Yeah.
the course of the season, which wasn't as much of a factor last year. With adding some more of this content, you have a little bit more of a direct interaction with the rest of us. So we look forward to being able to talk with you guys and actually like go over some things and really do more of a small bites approach as opposed to a full meal every week.
And links to all of that stuff, all of our social media, the mailbag, all that going to be in the comments of this video. So check those out as well. Finn's gonna take care of that for us.
Yes.
Yeah.
And yeah, with that out of the way, and now that we're finished there, let's get back into the actual NASCAR action for the season. One of the things that I wanted to talk about was some of the new faces and new places that we're seeing, some of the things that we can expect, and some of the just generally new rides and new teams. I know Finn has a particular interest for some reason in a recent change with a driver that he may have mentioned a couple of times on other episodes. Finn, is there something you wanted to talk about with a specific driver that you may or may not thoroughly enjoy
Noted
speaking
Camry
about
guy.
all the time?
We talk about old Jimmy Jam, 7
Eh,
time.
Jimmy Jam.
Good old Jimmy Johnson. So, we made the note about me coming to Toyota. So I've been thinking a lot, and Alex Bowman, I think I'm gonna stay in terms of primary fanship with the 48 car. It's near and dear, and I really like Alex Bowman, but I think as obviously my favorite driver growing up, Jimmy Johnson, as he's taken ownership of Legacy Motor Club, they've made the move to Camry. Jimmy's actually going to be running multiple races this year. I think he's running Dover, Phoenix, both Kansas, the 600, the 500. I mean, it's just going to be really good to see him on the track. And you can't deny what your heart is cheering for. And I love Jimmy. I love what Jimmy's doing back in the sport, right? Again, Corey, you missed the Jimmy Johnson era, but this is what Jimmy Johnson does. There is no half-ass. There isn't buy into a team and let it be, right? There is
Right.
no kind of compete. No, Jimmy wants to win or throw everything. And that's what we've seen, right? So he kind of got the vibe that Chevy wasn't giving him the love. Maybe Hendrick obviously isn't providing that support to Legacy Motor Club at the time. So he was like, screw it. We're going to go to Toyota. I want to be the
why
best
not?
chance to win, right?
Yeah.
Eric Jones, if I'm not mistaken, was a Toyota guy to begin with and was kind of in their pipeline regardless when he went to Gibbs to start. So I think they kind of like that move anyway. So point is super stoked to have Jimmy back. Hopefully I get to actually see him at the 600 this year because the last one got rained out and then he wrecked out. But that's super exciting. Legacy Motor Club, they've got some new drivers there. Obviously, Eric Jones is back. We'll talk about John Hunter here soon. And of course, the last thing, Jeff, I don't know if you saw it, but Legacy Motor Club, Jimmy Johnson, Travis Pastrana, and a gray, I think it's Ledbetter.
Yep.
She's a 19-year-old like dirt prodigy from North Carolina. They're going to be racing in like this international Saudi Arabian like off-road trucks league. Carlos Sainz.
Extreme E, right?
Yeah, Extreme E. Carlos Sainz apparently races in this league. He's the only name I recognize.
Oh,
But
hell
this stuff looked chaotic. When I sent a link to
wild.
Corey, it looked
Yeah.
like when we were all racing on Forza Horizon 2 with Tom and them, like just through the dirt,
Yeah.
bouncing and jumping, and it's chaos.
Oh,
Like
sounds
Baja-
Pastrana's going to be right at home then.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
super excited. So I think as the 48 sunsets, I don't know who's going to take it over after Bowman, if it's going to stay, but I feel my allegiance shifting to these young guys at the Legacy Motor Club, and they're like the Detroit Lions of NASCAR. You know, we're not talking about noted winners, so it's not like anybody's going to get mad at me. But yep, that's Jimmy Jam. Um, I mentioned John Hunter. There's a lot of rookies. Um, I'll throw this one at Corey now. Josh Berry takes over the 4 at Stuart Haas. What are your thoughts there on bringing in a guy like Josh to the team?
I think he is a smart, natural successor to someone like Harvick. You got somebody. He's not a Cup Series veteran, right? But he is a racing veteran.
Right.
The guy knows his way around the garage. He knows all the players. He knows the game. Still got Rodney as the crew chief. But I really do think that it's a probably smart move. I like that one better than I like getting Gragson in the 10. I think Gragson, I know you guys have told me that he's this like natural talent, and that must be true, right? Because he's getting a second chance, et cetera, et cetera. But he really kind of just put me off last year in the Chicago street race. And maybe I just can't get that out of my head watching him hit that same spot on the wall over and over and over again. In the stupid Wendy's car with the bacon shirt on. It was just like, I don't know. I like Barry to the 4, Gragson to the 10. We'll see. But I do think that if you're going to lose someone like Harvick as a Briscoe fan, you kind of want somebody who's a little more seasoned and mature as a teammate, more so than just going straight to like if we had gotten Zane Smith or something like that, for example, who's another rookie on the circuit this year. But yeah, I like Josh Berry. He seems like a laid back guy. I think that team could do well. Hopefully we see an improvement this year across the board for Stuart Haas as we get a new Mustang along with the new Camrys. They have also updated to the 2024 Dark Horse Mustang for all the Ford shops.
Right.
It is super, super sick. Hopefully we see a little bit of improvement because Ford, they keep winning championships, but they look like ass during the regular season.
Well,
So hopefully find something in this new model.
Well, I'm glad that you brought that up because one of the things I'm looking forward to with that, and this is something I maybe intend to break into a little bit with a couple of the historical pieces, but one of the things that I always found interesting is when you look back through the history of NASCAR, you had what would have been referred to as the Aero Wars, right? So if you look at some of the cars that were coming out in the very late 60s, early 70s, and throughout that late 70s, early 80s period where like you kind of saw a little more of that getting quelled. But if you look back at some of those classic races, you saw so much more variety in the actual body types of the cars.
Yeah.
And so much more like it was so unique when you used to see some of the, when you'd see the Charger running against the other Mustangs, you'd see Oldsmobiles coming out there, you'd see some of the other like body types that really made it unique and made it almost easier to identify your favorite driver
Right.
because you knew, Richard Petty I don't know if you guys have ever seen when he's driving I think it was the 1970 car with the big wingtip spoiler in the back, and some of the other cars that were coming around. I think the hope is maybe we start to see this come around full circle a little more and get a little more uniqueness in the body types with some of the cars that come in there. So that should be fun. And I mean, yeah, I think the new Mustang looks pretty good. I hope to see some of these new changes come in. Maybe by the time we hit Gen 8, we might see a few more changes there.
I did see some deep speculation. This is way off topic, but anyway, I did see some deep speculation that with the Camaro going away, that what we might be getting is a Cadillac from GM
That's all that.
instead of a Chevy coming into NASCAR.
Considering
That would
the
be
IMSA
wild.
cars,
Right.
that's one of my
Right.
favorite things with watching some of the IMSA races. Just listening to those Cadillacs, my God,
that would be
they
super
sound
cool.
fantastic. So
But
yeah, that could be really cool. But moving along to the to some of the next pieces now, we've got let's see, Hocevar into the 77 for Spire. You mentioned Nemechek, SVG, everybody's favorite commentator, can't seem to pronounce his name for some reason because somehow Van
What's his name,
Gisbergen
Jeff?
is hard.
There
Shane
we
Van
go.
Gisbergen. Yes, it's not that hard, y'all. It's
Not
really
that hard.
not. It's
It's
really
not that
not.
hard.
No, it's really not that hard to do, but I'm really excited to see him get out there. I'm really excited to see what he can do on an oval, especially in some decent. I mean, we'll see him out there in some decent equipment, and just generally, watching the way that he gave so many guys runs for their money and left a lot of people in the dust on the road tracks last year. I am, and the street course in particular, like I
Yep.
don't know. I'm excited to see him get in there and shake things up.
Well, he ran 2 races last year, and he won the first one. And he didn't
Yes.
just win the first one.
Killed it.
He qualified like top 5 and was
Mhm.
running down the leaders and taking the lead at the time a caution came out. Due to weird pit timings and the caution timings, he ends up 17th coming out, drives through the field. To Kyle Larson said he had just gotten through what he felt was one of his best sections of the race of the track. He just absolutely killed it. Felt really fast. Looked up, and Shane Van Gisbergen was right on his rear. And just absolutely absurd road course racer. He then did the Indy road course, where he was down on power and still finished with a top 10. And up until he went down on power, I was watching his view. I mean, he was one of the only guys who could catch and pass with ease.
Yeah.
Um,
I can't wait to see him at Coda, dude. I
Yeah.
cannot wait to watch him at Coda.
Coda,
Oh,
I'm a
that's-
little
that's gonna be a
concerned
blast.
of because of that first turn and everybody just banged
That's
so
why I want
hard.
it.
So like he could end up unfortunate.
Yeah.
But I think if you
Just don't line up near Stenhouse and you'll be fine.
right, but if he could just keep the car clean and put himself within the top 7 before within the last 10 to 15 laps of the race, I think he could absolutely compete. I do like them getting him on the Talladegas and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Getting him that practice so he's
Stoke
not going to be
600.
I do not expect him to race up front or try to race up front. I expect
Yeah.
those races purely to be well, all of the smaller teams that have full-time drivers are going to be running an extra guy if possible at those tracks. Like David Reagan's going to come back and run the 500 for Roush Fenway Racing. Wait, RFK. Keselowski's the owner. But yeah, so he's going to be kind of there to be a teammate, there to help with drafting and pit when the rest of the colleague and the Chevys pit, but really just there to kind of learn. Everything else, though, I think is it's going to be fun to see how he does. He does do a lot of iRacing. He has a really high I rating for ovals, so there's that, Corey. We'll see how well that translates. We mentioned John Hunter Nemechek and Hocevar. His teammate, though, SVG, he's going to be driving the 16. The full-time driver is going to be Daniel Hemrick. I'm pretty concerned. So out of the 4 main rookies, I'm sure there's going to be a couple, but there's Josh Berry, who I think could possibly win a race, right? They've got a great... actually, I didn't get to mention Stuart Haas, 3 incredible short track drivers. Right? Between Priest, Briscoe, and now Berry. There's Hocevar, who impressed last year in limited time in the 42. He's going to take over the 77 Aspire. I'm really not expecting him to do much. It's going to be a lot of what we saw last year, which is, wow, he's racing good for a dog shit car. John Hunter Nemechek, if Legacy is racing as good as they finished last year, I could see John Hunter being a kind of a run for the Rookie of the Year. I don't think he wins a race. Daniel Hemrick's interesting, Corey. He's been in the Xfinity Series for a long time. He is an Xfinity Series champion. He has won one Xfinity Series race. And it was
the championship?
It was the championship race. He passed Austin
That's wild.
Cindric on the last lap. And granted, it was an incredible pass. Daniel Hemrick is
Just
a
at that
very
moment, huh?
confusing pick for me. I genuinely don't think he's going to drive any better than Haley did. I think the money left with Haley in terms of sponsorship. So I'm curious to see if they take a step back. SVG is going to be part-time in the 16. I want to shout out one more guy, Josh Williams. He was racing for DGM, a very small Xfinity team. He got notoriety last year when he parked it on the start-finish line because NASCAR told him to park it. So he parked it right on the track, got up, walked out. He looks like Kenny Powers.
He does. He's rocking the curly mullet.
He's
for sure.
absolutely hilarious personality. I love that kind of energy in NASCAR. And he was expected to, I think he did land a nice little Xfinity ride full time, and that's dope. But now, I don't know how, but he's going to be racing part time in the 16. If I'm not mistaken, he made the Clash, or at least he looked pretty decent in the Clash. I can't remember if he got cycled out on time. But yeah,
He
Josh.
just missed the cut.
Huh? Okay. So
I'm pretty sure he just missed the
yeah,
cut.
so that'll be a name to pick to. But out of these four, you had to if you had to put your money on rookie of the year, who are you taking? Barry, Hosevar, Nemechek, or Hemrick?
It's hard to pick against John Hunter Nemechek.
Real quick.
He was nasty as dude. Watching him in Xfinity was like, man, what are we doing here?
But he's also on a Gibbs
Um,
ride.
yeah.
He's also on the
he's gonna
Gibbs
be
ride.
quick.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's gonna be quick, man. So I don't see it being Barry. Unless Stewart Haas surprised me. After last year, I have no faith that they're gonna do anything. That would just be crossing my fingers and hoping. But my pick would be Nemechek for sure.
So as much as I would rather it be, excuse me, as much as I would rather it be Nemechek, I'm not taking Hosevar out of that equation. Now, equipment I think is going to play a large factor, all things considered. But as far as quality of work and being able to take some of those factors into the equation, I mean, I don't know. It's kind of hard to put some of the money against him or to completely count him out, as long as he can also keep himself out of trouble. I mean,
Yeah.
I've found, like, I don't know, my opinion on Hosevar has wavered back and forth, just considered some of the actions that he had in the trucks last year, just some of those incidents and some of those wrecks just, makes you a little wary. But at the same time, he proved he can drive. He's a hell of a driver. So, I mean, to me, if he can keep himself out of out of trouble, he's definitely in the running.
So my question to you is: you're 22 years old, 21, 22 years old. You're the hot name in NASCAR, right? In terms of prospects. Would you rather? Because remember, Carson Hocevar has been a Truck Series guy. This is a dude that has just basically skipped Xfinity, as far as I'm concerned.
Right.
No notable. I mean, he might have raced a couple one-offs or whatever, but as far as I'm concerned, Hocevar has been a Truck Series guy. So you're that guy. Would you rather drive the 77 for Spire, or would you want to drive for the let's call it B or the A echelon for Xfinity and be competing? Basically, do you want to compete for wins on Saturday, or do you want to finish 25th on Sunday? What do you want?
Spire's making moves, man. Like
I
they're
don't
making
know.
big moves though.
Didn't they? I think they just bought Kyle Busch Racing, didn't they? KBM.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
KBM.
Like I don't know. I mean, I think
You'd have
if
to
you're-
get, but
if
it
you-
sounds like you would need money. You need to guarantee that I'm going to get good Cup cars on Sunday. Not amazing, not top dollar.
I mean, right. You got to get to the show. If someone says you want to go to the show, the answer's yes. Like, I'm sorry. It's just that's how I'm wired. Like, I'll figure it out, right?
Right.
Get me there, get me to the I don't care what the equipment is, honestly. Get me to the show. I'm going to finish this damn thing 5 spots higher than you think I should. That's how I would view it, and that's how I think these guys probably view it too.
Well,
I know
that's
there are
fair
guys
enough.
that make
Yeah.
the other choice, but Hocevar isn't wired like that. I don't think. I actually met him at Richmond. He was a really really nice guy.
believe
so
that.
He was super.
He's
cool.
a fun personality too.
Yeah.
I mean, anytime that usually they put a camera in front of him, he's at
Yeah.
least a pretty funny guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, to that, I mean, I just generally I tend to agree with that. I think that if he goes out there and is able to overperform based on the ride that he's in, and that's another reason why I bring up some of the incidents and the issues that he's in. Like, regardless of the car that you're in, if you wreck out midway through the race and you DNF, none of it matters, right? But if you're out there
It's
and
true.
you're starting, you're starting between 25 and 30 and you find a way to crack the top 20 in, a good amount of the races that you're in, just, even if it's just a matter of getting through some of the chaos, well,
Yeah.
that number is that number. It is what it is. I mean, that's how you, that's how you put it. How you put a name out there for yourself, because, who knows? It's shown that in today's NASCAR, that same pathway doesn't always have to be the one. Some people just generally find their way up. So,
What about you,
yeah,
Finn?
we'll kind of see how this goes. Right now, I think we're kind of witnessing an interesting shift right now. Like, if you were to look at, I'd say what, like 10 years ago or so, and we were looking at the dominant but older racers out there when you had like the Kenseths of the world and some of the other drivers, and Jimmy was kind of making his way, towards the sunset, and
Oh,
Gordon was making his way towards the sunset. That was going on, and then you had the Logano's, and Denny was a few years in, and you had Harvick was, starting to come into his form. Where we saw what the drivers that we're starting to see become veterans now are becoming that old guard, and right now these are the guys that are going to become that next group. These are the ones that are going to become that next echelon of this generation of racing. So, keep an eye on it. It's going to be interesting to see who takes these rookie of the years, because I have a feeling 10 year, 7 to 10 years from now, we're going to be looking back at this going, damn, I remember when this dude was, hopping the truck series to come straight to Cup and doing his thing, or we were, watching some of these young guys come in here and really make their move. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's going to be interesting. But to shift away to the next piece, I think we should talk about the schedule, because we
Sure.
got a lot of meat and potatoes to this one. Few things that make me very, very excited. Some things and drums that I beat on over and over and over and over again last year have come to fruition. So I'm very excited about that. But we can generally start with the first couple of weeks of the season, and we're going full super speedway racing right off the break. Finn is immediately shaking his head now, as predicted, because this is not his jam. I am just, giddy and excited about it. But go ahead, Finn. What do you think?
The best part about Daytona is that we go to a mile and a half afterwards every year. Like immediately off to California for the Auto Club. But Auto Club is gone. It is in teardown. So they're gonna move Atlanta there. I will say this: if it's like the last two super speedway races we had, it'll be extremely enjoyable race. Um,
Atlanta was fun last year.
the last two super speedway races of the year were fantastic. Very well done, very solid racing. I will give those 9 out of 10s at the low end every time. My issue with this, I hate it. I've hated this forever. We start our NASCAR's Super Bowl as the first race of the year. Like, that's because you've struggled to build a product that kept interest through the months. So you hype up the first race versus the last race. The championship race and the championship should be the most hype part of NASCAR. Maybe it is part of the long season. That's another podcast topic. But my whole point is they come out and it's all hype, and then it's just slow rising because everybody's just chilling. It's like extra conservative because, yes, I want to win the race, but I don't want to make any moves throughout.
Yeah.
Yes, the cool part is somebody earns themselves a playoff spot. The downside is fucking Ricky Stenhouse didn't do anything with it, right? Just wasted a spot for somebody else. But that's its own beast. Again, I'm sure it'll be fine. Atlanta's a fun one to go to, but I'm the third race of the schedule. I am eyeing that, and I've got one more
yeah.
podcast to record between now and then, so that's even worse. So you're gonna hear the spiel twice.
Well, yeah, and we'll get there. Well, here's to that same point, Finn. This is the one thing that I've thought about a lot with this particular subject is, like, we talk about it's the Super Bowl of racing. We start. I feel like that marketing may be part of it too. I mean, what if instead of marketing it as the Super Bowl of NASCAR, what if we started shifting it more towards the same way that you market opening day in baseball?
Right.
Like, that's an exciting thing. People get hyped about it. It's the whole idea. You're getting into the season, you're getting started, you're psyched to get going. People take off work to go and see opening day ball games. People are generally in full bright spirits to start the baseball season and
Right.
go. I mean, to me, what if NASCAR shifted it to say, here it is. It's Daytona again. We're kicking the season off right. It's opening day, and you kind of shifted in that direction. I mean, this is all marketing material, but I don't know. I mean, maybe it needs to go in that direction, just to kind of get away from kind of what you're talking about, because that's a good point
Right.
that you're trying to do this to get all this extra hype generated, but what if you shifted the direction of the hype
Right.
towards what's to come rather than what happens here and then come to a halt?
Yeah, you would think if you're a casual fan, you hear that we do our Super Bowl at the beginning of the season, you'd be like, so the
So what am
championship's
I
won?
watching week 2 for?
What's
Right.
next?
That's the
Or-
thing. The phrase Super Bowl to an American implies it's the championship,
Right.
Yeah.
which it is not.
Right. Well,
It's not.
exactly. And here's
Right.
the other thing, because this goes also with Finn's other point too, is something else to bring up is you bring up like, oh, you get these drivers that win Daytona, they punch their playoff ticket and then flame out and nothing really happens. I mean, in baseball, to use this comparison again, you get plenty of teams that are hot in April when they have a full healthy rotation and they have a fully healthy team and they still got people before they determine whether they're sellers or whether they're buyers. You still have a lot of hope springs eternal factors that exist. And that's one of the things that make it so exciting and make it so much fun to enjoy that opening day. And then a lot of the teams that, started off that first series 2-1, 3-0, whatever, are nowhere near the playoff hunt come October. So they've already flamed out at that point. I mean, it just, not to to beat this analogy to death, but to me, I mean, what if that was more the branding rather than making this seem like it's the end all be all
Right.
when you have an entire season of racing to do afterwards. So there's that.
Hold on. So one thing to that though, I've always thought it was interesting. To me, racing is more of an analog. It's more similar to me in terms of schedule and the way that it all works. It's like golf, right? Where you have these like big events spaced throughout the year. In racing, they're called crown jewels, right? In
They're
golf,
majors,
they call them
yeah,
a major,
sure, absolutely,
right?
yeah.
It's more like, to me, it would be more accurate, and no one cares because I mean golf is its own thing, but like it's more like the Masters is in golf to me than opening day in baseball. Like, yes, it's the first day of the season, that's true, but like it is the biggest crowning achievement that you can get in NASCAR outside of winning a championship, right? Which that's what you would kind of say about something like a major in tennis or a major in golf, something like that, where it's more like a major than it is an opening day or a championship. That's kind of how I've always thought of it, of Daytona, Coke 600, like that's how it lays out throughout the season. It just so happens that one of NASCAR's majors is the first week of the season. Right. So that's kind of how I figured it out.
Yeah,
in
I
my
think
head.
that would be a great.
Yeah.
I'm totally on board.
Yeah.
With that. Yeah.
I think
Market your
that-
crown jewels as crown jewels. Find ways to, if you're gonna spend the big bucks, to put it not on FS1 but Fox.
Yeah.
Right.
And bring in these other personalities to be a part of that experience and things like that to help shift the sport. I mean, we saw what Taylor Swift did to football in terms of bringing viewership to a whole new level, to a whole new group of fans. We have a guy like MJ in the sport. We have, there's so many things that we can do from a marketing standpoint. I think NASCAR needs to kind of catch up a little bit there. Now, another thing too is you get all these new fans. They just watched the NASCAR Netflix series, which was fantastic, by the way. We're going to go to Daytona. Cool. All right. Super speedway racing. Dope. All right. I've heard all year about this, or all race about these other kinds of races. So what's Atlanta? Oh, same kind of race. That's where I'm a little concerned. It's like, it would be nice to say, dope, you got super speedway racing for 2.5 hours on Daytona. Let's go to Vegas and let me show you out in Vegas what it's like to whip these things around at 190 into a turn, and these things are loose ass sideways. Hey, let's go to Phoenix now. This is a short track. Also, heads up, we're gonna come back here in November for do or die time championship. I feel like that's way better market. I don't have too many qualms as we continue to go through the schedule. Daytona and Atlanta back to back don't do much unless you're banking on these fans loving Daytona. But just look at your party last year, Corey, as we all sit down, everybody's hyped. We had so many people show up, and then they were like, all right, so what's going to happen? Be like, well, your guy moved up to 17th, but now he's back to 30th, but it's fine. Don't worry about it. And then everybody's just like, all right, I'm out of it, because you're not watching any, like.
If it wasn't called the Daytona 500, it would be a better race as the Daytona 200.
Right.
Like,
Exactly.
That's just a fact. The end of it, it really would, man. Like your boy, old Keller last year made a good point where these super, super long races would be better if they were shorter, but then they'd be too short. And you can't sell commercials when your race is only 200
right,
miles.
and because that's the other
Right.
thing when you start talking about like the Netflix crowd, and you talk about folks that may have, come over from that like Drive to Survive thing,
Yeah.
who got into F1 and then they come in. I'll tell you one thing, they are in for some shit when they come in here and tune into their first big NASCAR race, and that first commercial break hits
Oh,
while
yeah.
we're right in the middle of actual action.
Yeah.
Because that's not happening in Formula One.
It's just going to be Dilly on the side going, so do they take a break too? Do they pause? Oh, we're back. It's been 5 laps. We've missed everything. Yes, Dilly.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, Dilly,
Yeah.
we've missed 5 laps. We
It
have
will
no idea.
inevitably be right when a run happens, a lead change happens,
Yeah.
they're going to commercial.
If there's one thing NASCAR can do better this year, it's stop going to commercial when there's somebody battling for the lead.
Yeah. Oh, and we got 3 cars coming in on the lead lap. Whopper, chicken, Whopper. Like, please.
We already
Please.
mentioned no Bristol
Avoid
dirt.
that this year.
We've already mentioned no Bristol dirt. You guys are going to be
That's
going to the Richmond races this year, and you won't be baking in the hot sun. You won't have to
Thank
go
God.
to a shitty suite to evade it. You can just sit in the seats now.
That's Easter Sunday, by the way. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, yeah.
The first. I know you guys don't care, but I'm just saying, like, I'm missing a family event to go to Richmond
Well,
this year.
on the
I
third-
know. Dude,
on the
dude,
third
we said
day-
let's make it bring your
Dude,
mom to the track
well,
day, bro.
We'll discuss that off the air, but I don't think
Okay.
that's happening on Easter Sunday.
Well, I mean, on
Yes.
the third day, Jesus did say, "All raise hail, praise Dale." So,
Boogity,
That's
boogity, boogity.
Exactly.
you know,
Let's brace.
No, I recognize that that is a
Yeah.
significant factor for
there's
a
nothing
very
more
large
Christ-like
segment
than watching
of the
NASCAR in
NASCAR
person.
fan base. Hey,
Yeah.
more power to
Yeah.
you.
But
Do what you
super
want,
pumped it's a
but-
night race. Super
Yeah.
pumped. Though
Me
I
too.
was thinking,
Both of
Jeff,
them.
you and I should do like Easter dinner tailgate. How cool would that be? Like
I'll throw a ham
and
on the grill,
potatoes.
bro.
That's what I'm
Like,
saying, dude. How great would that be?
Yeah,
Screw it.
I
This
could
would
come
be
up with
fun.
that,
Yeah.
dude. Yeah, man.
But like but you know what else I thought about? It's interesting about this. I don't know. I mean, we all Jeff and I live in Virginia. Finn lives in North Carolina,
It's
but
not going to be cold. You'll be fine.
it's gonna be cold, dude.
I knew
Gonna be
that
cold
was
that-
his
on the
It's gonna be
first one. It
legit
will be
cold.
cold.
It's not going to be
It's
cold.
going to be cold. March 31st at 7 p.m. in the dark in Richmond, Virginia. It's going to be cold, bro.
Yep.
And Lord knows it's going to rain because me and Jeff have tickets. So
It'll
it's
be
going to
fine,
rain.
I promise you.
It's going to be wet. It's going to be cold. It's gonna, like, I'll take the cold and the dark over it's 85 degrees and sunny
Yes.
every single time. 100%.
Yes, I
But
have,
it is
I
going to
have
be butt
sat at football stadiums and far colder than anything that it's going to be at that track that night. I'm not as concerned about that. What I will get salty about, though, is if we go and it's like you get up there and all day it looks fairly decent, it looks good, and then the clouds open up and just start
Oh, yeah.
buckets of rain.
cold. Oh, yeah.
Oh, right as it hits like 6 p.m. and then, it's run until 2 a.m. Sunday night, that will be, that's
It's
going to
cold,
be,
dude.
yeah,
It's gonna be cold.
I
I don't know
appreciate
how
Finn trying
yes.
to will that into existence.
Yeah, I don't know what he's. I don't know
Like,
why he would like think that it's not gonna. Dude, it's gonna be cold. I've lived here my whole life. It's gonna
Because
be
you've
cold.
got 40 jets running around at full speed,
Nah,
kicking up
ain't gonna
heat
do
from
nothing.
the track. It'll be fine. As long as it's not
It's
under
cold.
55 degrees at the track or like the day, you'll be fine. It'll feel like 65.
It's going.
I think
It's,
it's
I,
gonna be below
I'm just
that.
saying, over under 55. I'm taking the under at 7 p.m. in Richmond, Virginia on March.
The
30th.
way that the weather has gone at this point,
Yeah.
we'll be watching out for
taking that
snow
under.
forecasts.
Yeah. No shit.
In Virginia in the middle of March. Either way, we'll see how that. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. The All-Star race back at North Wilkesboro this year. I like it. I mean, I thought it was fun last year. I think
So
it
does
just-
Kyle Larson.
well, of course, but the combination of NASCAR and North Wilkesboro that's there, I still contend that I would rather see that be, if we're going to have that track on the schedule, I'm fine with getting points racing back at North Wilkesboro. We have plenty of storylines that can exist regarding that track, plenty of history, plenty of things to take into it, and giving people a reason to really get serious about it and have it be worth something aside from an all-star victory. I would be interested to see what that's going on, but I'm interested to hear you guys' take on that.
I wouldn't necessarily have a problem with it. I don't know that they have the infrastructure to do like a proper points race there. It looked a little sketch. They'd need to do some updates. I think they can get away with doing an exhibition there for right now, but I'm not sure you can points race at North Wilkes-Barre
Well,
like right now.
it used to be a cup
Well, I know,
track,
I know.
right?
I'm just saying,
So
like right now, I think they probably would need to do some updates. But I don't have any problem with it if they want to do that. Sure, cool. It was well, I mean, aside from the obvious, Kyle Larson dominated that track last. It was he humiliated the rest of the field. So,
right.
I'm
I
a little meh.
well, he didn't humiliate the rest of the field because he had a better car by a mile. It's because he used the technique that nobody else
Figured
used.
it out.
Drove it. Yeah,
Getting
he
getting
had the
those
line.
tires on the apron there was something I don't understand how nobody else picked up on it. Right, it was him and Bubba who kind of figured out, and then I don't know why Bubba didn't keep doing it, but I mean that just tells the difference between the elite drivers in the pack. Is like
Yep.
Kyle's the kind of dude who like figures one little thing out, and then he drove through everybody. It wasn't
Well,
even
let's also keep in mind that line that he found wasn't exactly the safest line out there to
No.
find. That's
Right.
the other
Right.
thing to keep in mind there, and one of the things that adds to the point about whether anybody else was going to take it. I think there were plenty of people that were out there on that track, both in the truck race and in the cup race, that were going, "Hey, wait a second! Like,
dude. I would have loved.
I don't know if I'm running that. Kyle could very well hit this wall at some point, or all it takes is for him to veer just a little bit slightly, and bam, his race is over. I'm just waiting for that to happen, and I'll bide my time. Just considering how close he got and where his tires were at, I mean, the wrong condition could have sent him
Totally.
just out of there. So I don't know. I get it because I mean he drove that race brilliantly. He handled everything as well as you possibly could. So more power to him on that one. Moving forward, Iowa Speedway on the schedule. I'm excited for this one. I mean, as somebody who likes IndyCar, give me all this crossover. Give me this stuff. I like the idea of getting Iowa back out there. I like the idea of getting these guys on the Iowa Speedway. I mean, I know it's a hell of an Indy race every year, so why not? Let's get the stock cars out there and let them run. What do you guys think?
It's quicker in terms of the short tracks, right? It's a little bit more banked and
Right.
kind of plays real nice. So I think that there's going to be kind of multiple grooves. I think it's going to be quick, and I think again if the NASCAR focus on the short track package does see improvement, then Iowa's going to be a really,
Yeah.
really good race. So I'm excited. Again, don't have much. Nashville was always like a fun little
Mhm.
track as well, and that I wouldn't say the layout's the exact same, but though I think it can. It's got
You mean the
bones.
fairgrounds?
No, not the fairgrounds. Nashville.
So the Speedway,
Yeah,
Nashville.
you're right.
Yeah. Well,
The
here's
Cole
the other
Custer
factor to
win,
take
right?
into. Well, the other thing to keep in mind with that with Iowa that's going to be fun because this is a huge factor every time that IndyCar goes out there is that it's bumpy. It's
Yeah.
not the smoothest ride out there, or at least notoriously. I mean, I know what'll happen. I'll go and make all these comments about it now, and then we'll go, and then everything will just be smooth as eggs throughout the entire
Yeah.
ride. But that's the thing is like Iowa was always notorious for being a bumpy track, which is a larger factor when you get open wheel racing going on it. But at the same time, like that could be the difference in a tenth for a driver in NASCAR, and that could be all that you need to get that pass, and find the room that you need to be in the right groove. That's not, sending one of your axles out here, going crazy or potentially causing problems late in a race. So, yeah, there's a few factors with that. The Chicago Street Race is coming back. It was great last year. Barring the weather situation, the racing itself was awesome.
I didn't mind the rain at
Fantastic
all.
to watch.
I didn't mind the
What's
rain at
that?
all.
Yeah,
The track having
it
some-
did make for some fun
Dude,
pieces of it.
Dude,
Sure.
Again, I think Chicago Street Race has a case for the best race of the year last year.
It was
So
fun.
don't change it. I mean,
Yeah,
obviously
yeah.
I'm sure it'll race fine. But part of what made this small street circuit so fun was because the lack of control based on the water allowed for more passing lanes than I think would normally occur. Um, so I think that helped a ton. So I bring it. If you're gonna rain, how about
I
this? Save all your rain for the one race we've got rain tires, okay? And then
well, yeah.
stop raining at Dover every year. Like,
I'm excited for I hope that the Chicago Street Race goes better as an event than it did last year for the city of Chicago, because for them to put all of this on, and for the citizens of Chicago to make those sacrifices, to be willing to do that, for for better or for worse, it did not go well for them last year. It wasn't the showcase I think that they were kind of hoping for. So for the people of Chicago, I would love for them to have their shining moment with nice weather. I don't know if it's Fourth of July weekend. It was last year, but I assume it's sometime in July. Um, yeah, I would love to see that. The racing was great last year. I'm sure the racing will be great again. We're gonna get all the SVG talk and the remember how cool this was type stuff, and yeah, it's gonna be great.
If there's one thing NASCAR loves is to play into nostalgia as hard as they possibly can, and
Sure.
that is fine in many ways. But so
Speaking
we'll
of
see how that goes.
nostalgia,
Yes, I like that. I like that. Beautiful. Speaking of nostalgia and a happy Jeff, Brickyard 400 has returned. My calls have been answered. All of the wishes have come true. We finally get the Brickyard back. I am so hyped for this. I can't wait. And I just know, call me a cynic, that it's going to happen and it's going to be the Brickyard and it's not going to be a super exciting race. And people are going to go, well, why the hell did you bring that back for? This was boring. I didn't like it.
probably
I
gonna
don't-
rain.
Go cry to your mother about it. Give me the 400 every single year. Bring me the Brickyard all the time.
no, I think with the upgrade in horsepower that we've seen with the next gen has led to some tracks that have struggled in the last 5 to 6 years under the 500 horsepower package kind of come back to life. Charlotte's come back to life. Auto Club, Kansas, those races have been some of the best over the last couple seasons. So as long as this track can maintain 2 lanes so that, somebody can find a higher lane. I mean, it's not a high lane, like ride the wall kind of track, but as long as somebody can, use an outside lane and make that work, I think it'll be a fantastic race. I'm curious to if with the wider tires, we don't run into the issues we have with Indy in the past where they're chewing up tire. Because that was, kind of an issue that would had they bring a weird tire compound and Indy would just destroy the
Yeah.
tires. And
Yeah, I'm well aware. Trust me, well aware of that.
2008
See-
was the worst obvious race of all time in NASCAR history. The only thing that made it watchable was the guy who won it. You take your guess on who that was. Get a Jimmy Jam.
This is the number one race on the calendar for me this year.
Really?
Number one.
Just wanna
It's not.
feel-
It's not even.
just wanna
Not
try it.
even close. Yeah, not even close.
Yeah,
I'm
It's-
so excited to get to watch this that I cannot wait for this. The Brickyard. Jeff and I in our NASCAR gaming days back in the day would run Indy over and over and over again. It is my favorite track in the country. I cannot wait for this.
Yeah, it's going to be a blast. I mean, for me, from a fandom perspective, like finally Denny gets another chance to try and reclaim that crown jewel. That is one that he was never able to conquer. I bring up the pain of a few years back when he ran and was up front and had Harvick on his back, but he had everything contained and was in decent shape. And then based on what, Finn was just talking about, one of his tires just completely shreds out on him. He's done. On goes Harvick. Race is over. Jeff almost puts a fist through a wall. It was a whole thing. So I from a fandom perspective, I'm excited for that opportunity to come back. But then at the same time, I also feel like this is another great opportunity to capture a lot of energy, especially at a certain point in the season where, you really want to kind of get that momentum as you're rolling into the Darlingtons of the world, as you're rolling into the Daytonas. to try and close out the season and get into playoff talk. I think it's a good thing. And speaking of that, we did have a change towards the end of the regular season this year that I think is going to make the entire race for the playoff spots somewhat interesting. In that the Southern 500 now becomes the last race of the regular season, and Daytona moves to second to last. This is something that I know will make a lot of NASCAR fans feel some type of way about, because that's what you think of, right? You're closing the season out with Daytona about to ride into the playoffs like that. For me, I'll never not refer to it as, oh, here's the Pepsi 400, but in whatever iteration it is, it's going to be a little bit different this year, and it's going to be weird seeing Darlington come up at that point in the schedule.
Yeah, I mean, if I can throw in on it, I love it. So again, you've already mentioned the Pepsi 400. The second Daytona race is always a night race, and it has traditionally been on July 4th, right? This isn't something that has consistently been, even since the chase was invented in 2004, was something that was set in stone, right? This isn't NASCAR nostalgia that we're messing with by taking Daytona out. Again, for anybody new, if you win a race, you're guaranteed a spot in the playoffs. Only 16 drivers make the playoffs, so going into that last race of the year, either you've gotten in based on what we would call points, which is where you finish. The higher you finish in a race, the more points you get. Consolidate that over the end of the season. If you're in the top 16, you're in. But a way you can skip that line of everybody with points and not even have to play that game is if you win a race. So these races like Daytona, we'll talk about them on TikTok throughout the season, why they're such a big parts for smaller teams that might struggle throughout the year. It's a big race for them to kind of steal a spot in the playoffs, which is just, it's really good for them in terms of marketing and sponsorship and things like that. So I say all that to say this, that race is a complete clusterfuck because everybody is balls to the wall trying to get the last point or the last playoff spot available by winning a race and getting in. And I think that kind of takes away. I mean, it has been fun. Don't get me wrong. It's been really interesting. We watched Austin Dillon win a couple years ago to sneak in. We saw Bubba Wallace last year fighting off. I think it was him and was it Logano that he was racing against? That was a big part of the NASCAR Drive to Survive, was who Bubba was racing against. And that race to kind of make the playoffs. I can't remember if it was Logano made it, so it couldn't.
It was Logano because Logano wrecked.
Right.
In that race.
Right. Oh, yeah, he was. Yeah, it was something.
Yeah.
He got in on points.
Yeah.
I like it being Darlington. We're still going to get that feel at Daytona because the
Yes.
people are going to take swings. But now at Darlington being the last race, people are going to take swings to win, but it's not going to be a big cluster of pack racing that results in a big wreck leading to somebody stealing. No, now it's going to be, you have to put a complete race together against the hardest track on the
I was going to say, you're racing the track as well.
Very
That's one of the
difficult
other
track. It
big
is
factors.
very, very hard to pass. And because of that, I see a situation, late race caution, track that's hard to pass. Somebody doesn't pit. Somebody stays out there. 3 to 4 people stay out there with not fresh tires, and they force these guys. And then the next group of guys is going to be guys with 2 tires, and then the next group of guys is going to be the 4 tire guys, which will be the Stuart Haas guys because they're the ones that always take 4 tires. But now it's, can you block long enough to win the championship, right? We saw it a couple years ago, not at that track, but Briscoe with a fast car. He took no tires or limited tires and ended up out front at Martinsville and was trying to hold off the pack, and he almost did. That was, I believe, the Ross Chastain race where he zipped around. But point is that's where I see a huge swing happening at Darlington and making that race particularly interesting. Yes, the best driver of the race is going to be like Byron or Hamlin or something or Larson, and they're going to be leading. But I think after a late race caution, they're going to be stopping like 7th or 8th. And they're going to have to win that race, they're going to have to fight through lap traffic. And guys that are not, seriously, it's going to be like Eric Jones out there with no tires going, I'm not giving this lead up, and it's a small track.
Right.
You can only pass me 1 of 2 spots, So that's where I think it'll be interesting. So I do like the change to move Darlington to the last race of the playoffs, or before playoffs.
Well, not to mention also, like you said, like one of the other factors to take into account is Darlington is almost always good for a sweet outside line. When Darlington is when Darlington is doing its thing, you know
Right.
what I mean? When the racing is good as Darlington, there's a good outside line there.
Right.
So chances are that you will typically get a couple lanes of racing and you'll have that opportunity for anywhere between 1 and 10 to have a chance to find a way to get up to the front.
Right.
Also a crown
Gonna be
jewel
there.
race. So
And-
now you're opening the season with one and closing the season with one.
Right.
Right.
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly.
Right. I don't. Yeah, I
Wow.
guess traditionally the Pepsi 400 has not been considered a crown jewel race, and we're getting one back, right? The 400 Brickyard 400 is
Yeah.
a crown jewel, so we're getting that one back.
Yep.
So, in the interest of time, we may have to speed through these playoffs. I've got a wife to go pick up.
You're
Have
good.
there been any major changes in the? I mean, we're starting off with Atlanta. I don't hate that. Watkins Glen was not. Has Watkins Glen been a playoff track? The road course has traditionally been the Roval, right? So we're going
Roval's
to
in the
Watkins.
round of 12 now. Yes, they moved Watkins Glen into the first round of the playoffs. So you've got super speedway, road course, short track,
Right.
all in the first round. So
I love that.
very interesting. Yeah, that's
I mean,
interesting.
yes, the mile and a halfs. You don't have you have to be good at the mile and a half later. You have to be good in the round of 12 at Kansas, and then at round of 8 where it's Vegas and
Yep.
Homestead. So I do like the layout. I do like 2 road courses where we're just kind of committing to the bit that we're a road course centered, or we're at least partially centric to road courses in
Yep.
NASCAR. So having Watkins Glen is a very racy one, and so is the Roval. So
Yep.
those are 2 good ones, right? It's not like Sonoma in the playoffs, which would be a snooze fest.
Yep.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I mean, even as somebody who likes road course racing, I would say that if you're gonna put these here, you know, like, I don't think you could put Coda in the playoffs.
I
As
would.
wild as that would be,
I'd do them all at Coda.
Dude, I'm gonna be
Yeah,
honest
like,
with you.
yeah.
I'm gonna be
Coda
honest
8
with you.
times.
I would be totally okay if we just traded out Charlotte and Coda every week for 36 weeks. Charlotte, Dakota, Charlotte,
It'd be
Dakota,
wild.
Charlotte, Dakota. Just driving back, and
Yeah.
we'll just have the Texas to North Carolina pipeline.
Right.
Yeah.
It'd be
Just have
it'd be
2
wild
offices.
stuff.
You're right, dude.
Yeah.
I'd do it, and then you can run one Daytona to make you nerds happy, and then right back to Charlotte, Coda, Charlotte, Coda. Oh, it's the best.
Yeah.
Not
Championship
Roval
still
though.
at Phoenix.
Huh?
Championship
Yeah.
race still at Phoenix.
It is, and
Championship
I
still
hope
at
this short. I mentioned it twice already, but the short track package, it's being aimed at Phoenix. They testing it at Phoenix. They have got to do something, because if you're gonna make the winner take all be one track, you gotta let that be a competitive track, man. It is just so
Yeah.
tough to pass, dude.
Yep. Yep.
Well, it also, the main thing you're selling at that track is turn 1, right? Like, you're selling the restart. You're not selling the entire track.
Right.
You're selling that restart. You're selling chaos.
Right.
So if you're doing that, the car better be on its game. You bet your package that you take into that track better be good.
Right.
So that way the rest of the track becomes something to watch along with that restart,
Right.
as opposed to the one person that finds a way to get through the chaos and find the clean air and go, just becoming the one, you know, to make something happen. So
Yeah.
yeah, I personally think that, you know, I like it. I like the fact that they're testing that. I think it's a great move to utilize Phoenix as your testing ground and then dial it back to everything else and figure out what you're going to do from there. You have to, if that's going to be your spot, I totally agree. If that's going to be your championship spot, everything needs to be tuned specifically with Phoenix in mind.
Right.
How long does it take Chase Elliott to get his first win this year?
I say 10 races max.
That's
First
interesting.
10 races?
This is
Yeah.
good because I think it leads right into the storyline portion, which is, I think, is going to be a good place for us to ride this thing out. But
Yeah, no, I think,
yeah, Chase Elliott. Honestly, I'm going to go sooner. I think he's going to be hungry. I think it's within 5 races Chase Elliott gets his first win.
Yeah, I think he had a very quiet, quality season after his return from the snowboarding injury. I think that I think that the Hendrick guys have been quick. They were quick at the beginning of the year last year, right? Bowman was very fast. Byron had a 5-win season. Larson's there, so I think Chase is going to race well. He's solid at Atlanta. He's solid in the first couple of tracks. Then we've got Coda, who he's always a threat to win, one of the better road course drivers. So I don't think it takes long for him at all to get back to playoff form.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Now,
He's from Georgia, right?
Yep.
yes.
Yep.
He's winning Atlanta.
You got him.
You think
he's
Second
winning
one. He
Atlanta?
actually
Yeah.
only
Okay.
has
Week
one
two.
win at Atlanta, but yeah.
Week 2. He's getting his dub. Week 2.
That's the one that
Thing.
everybody hopes. The Dawsonville pool room goes a little nuts when
Yep.
they come around Atlanta. So they'll be hoping to run that siren.
Yeah, I really do think Hendrick kind of returns to form as this kind of 3 dominant drivers. I think Byron's taken the leap. All last season we were doing power rankings, and I was just super apprehensive on Byron, and you luck and luck. At the end of the day, if you luck into 10 really good finishes, at a certain point it becomes part of what you are.
You make your own luck.
Right. So
He's making his own luck.
and it's not easy to win. He put himself in good. Now, yes, he had a lot of situations where he was the fastest car all day and he was fading. He had a very Blaney-esque season from not last year, but the year prior,
They won a
aside from
championship?
having some more finishes. So if that's the continued climb for Byron, then yes, the next step logically says that he's going to be the champion this year.
Sure
so-
does. Very Blaney-esque.
I mean, as far as I'm concerned, Byron should be the. I mean, I hate to do that. I hate that
Yeah.
talk, but like again, Phoenix has got its things to work out.
That's a take.
If
That's a
you
take.
watched NASCAR the last 2 seasons and walked away going that Penske has the 2 best drivers in the series, it'd be very confusing because those are not the guys that we're seeing dominate and win, right?
I
We're
will
seeing-
say this though, I think Chevy's going to have a tough year because they're the only ones that didn't
Right.
get the update.
right. It's
Like,
one of those
they're
things.
using
Yeah, it's one
older
of those things that
equipment.
we're not going to know till they're flying around. But
Yeah.
like, if it was a change in a good direction, the Toyotas were already bad fast last year at mile and a halfs and stuff. If they've got a couple more things figured out, goodbye, because they already own
Yeah.
Richmond. You watch Richmond, all race long, whatever's happening, final 100 laps at Richmond. Truex is coming to the front. The 11's coming to the front. And Bell's coming to the front. So
Funny how that would happen at the Toyota Owners 400.
yeah,
Crazy how
seem-
that would be a thing to
I seem to
potentially
remember sitting in an overpriced suite and watching Chris Buescher win a race, but that,
eating corn
That
dogs
could be
or
just-
whatever they gave you.
happen.
Corn dogs from the Xfinity race is what you had.
Well, it would have been left
Corn dogs would have been better.
sitting there for a while.
Dude,
Yeah,
you know what's bad
No.
when the like microwavable mini corn dogs would have been a better meal for the sweet
I
experience.
mean, does it? Like
Would have
heat
been.
lamp wedding chicken? It probably would have beat that. Yes, but,
there's Taylor Swift at the Super Bowl, and you guys were like Kesha at the trailer park. That's what. That's,
That's right.
That's- yep, you
Yeah.
nailed
it
it.
was. Yeah,
So,
exactly.
My
So-
question to you guys is, who are your hot seat drivers this year? Who are your guys that you're thinking that seat ain't safe? It ain't safe.
I got an easy one.
All right,
Austin Cindric.
Austin.
Man, he had a bad year last year, dude.
Yeah.
It was bad. Like, you got teammates that just won back-to-back championships, and you look like shit. So,
Right.
Austin Cindric by a mile. If he doesn't do something this year, he's done.
The only reason I would disagree is he's a nepo baby.
I know.
His father Tim.
That
Cindric,
only takes you so far, dude.
Well, I mean, I wish I could put the 3 on this list. Right, the Austins.
Yeah.
Austin Dillon does not deserve to be
Yeah.
a Cup Series driver in my mind.
Yeah.
He's wasting away top tier equipment, and it's granddaddy's money that's helping that out. So, but I can't put. But I agree.
That to me is different than Cindric. Like, Cindric his dad doesn't own the team. I get that he's important to the team, but it's like Austin Dillon's grandfather owns the team. Like,
here's
it's
the
up to him.
So this brings up it's kind of 2 separate discussions. Is the seat hot based on performance, or is the seat hot based on everything else? Because those are
Yes.
other pieces to take into account. Because that can happen. I mean, you can lose your ride over other stuff.
right.
Austin
'cause
Dillon
when-
also doesn't have teammates that just won back-to-back championships.
Right. Well, because this also leads me into, I mean, personally, and as far as I'm concerned, this is a crossover for both. But Noah Gragson,
Right.
I mean, you've got somebody right here who came in and was doing great in Xfinity,
Right.
was supposed to be making his move up to come up to the Cup Series, and had his ridiculous incident of what he did with his social media last year of going out there and liking racist memes and doing the cardinal sin in corporate America of going
Being
out on social
un-PC.
media
Yeah.
and making the brand look bad.
Right.
That's what despite any of the moral implications of what's going on there, that's in a sport that is so sponsor heavy, that is so image heavy, he went out there and did that. But then at the same time, it's not like the guy was setting the world on fire behind the wheel either. So
was
to
setting
me,
turn 6
eyes
in
are going to be
Chicago on
on the
fire.
kid. What's that?
I said he was setting turn 6 in Chicago on fire.
That's
He was
what I'm
He
saying,
was lighting
like-
that sucker up.
Right.
No,
Exactly. It's one of those things where it's not. I felt like outside of all of the other stuff, he was underperforming.
Right.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of moments where you're watching a guy that you were expecting to see come into his own, and he wasn't. And you also make that comparison with Ty Gibbs, who was racing right there with him the year before in Xfinity. Those two were head to head, back and forth. That was the rivalry throughout the entire Xfinity series the year before. And you've got one guy who had an insanely great rookie season. And then you've got another guy that performance wise just wasn't really getting there. We didn't see that head to head that some might have presumed we were going to.
Right. I would agree, and I would say the 4 and the 10 are in hot seats, but I don't believe they're 1-year hot seats. Okay. But what I want to say
Okay.
is
Fair.
these guys are not in rides that they're committed to long time. And I think obviously the 10 Noah's got his character to make sure that he stays on straight and does those things. Now remember, the 10 and Gregson and Barry were teammates under Junior Motorsports, and Gregson outraced Barry consistently on what I would say similar equipment. Right, I won't say even, but similar equipment. So we know Noah's got the skill set, but he's not racing around in Junior Motorsports equipment against Xfinity drivers anymore. Right, it's the big leagues. So maybe his skill set doesn't translate, his aggressiveness doesn't translate. But yes, if he keeps his head on straight, cool. But also, Tony's already made it known that he's not here to ride around in the 10 to 15. Stuart Haas is here to win races.
Yeah.
So I think
It doesn't show.
if a bigger driver were to hit the market looking for a ride in a couple years, I think that they would be on the hot seat. I think Daniel Hemrick in the same range is just kind of a filler for Colleague as they try to figure out what they're going to do post Haley. I wouldn't be surprised if that team sells their charter to somebody looking to expand. I know RFK wants. Actually, I think they're. You know what? Now I'm thinking. I think the charter system might have not been renegotiated. So I need to look that up. We'll talk about that on the next pod on what the charter system is, or maybe that'll be some content. But that might be going away. I don't know how that's going to play. Obviously, the 19 is going to retire here soon. We know that's going to be an open. I wouldn't say hot seat, but hot seat ends, and somebody's going to want a Joe Gibbs ride. And if you go to Joe Gibbs, I think it would be a big market driver looking for a hot ride. That means something else is going to open up, right?
Yeah.
Because a big name driver absolutely would jump ship to drive for Joe Gibbs. The 11 very well could find his way. I think Denny's going to eventually race for 23XI. I know he doesn't want to, but I think he senses here soon that they might become the flagship Toyota team. So the 11 might be something, or that slot at Gibbs. Here's my 2 hot seat drivers, though.
I'm curious if you're going to go in the same direction that I am here. What do you got?
I'm going to go. It is because of one person on this team. It is not because I think this driver's bad. I thought he has improved multiple times over the last couple of years. I thought he's gotten hot at the right tracks. I think he's just the finishing final, game-winning shot type mentality away, right? But Michael Jordan is Michael Jordan. And Michael Jordan eventually is going to want you to win. We're hitting the 3-year plan, right? Denny talked about this on the Drive to Survive. It's going to take 3 years to build. And yes, both of them just hit the playoffs. But I do think eventually Bubba Wallace is going to have to win some races when he's not eliminated to retain the 23. I do think eventually Michael might be like, hey, we need to get ourselves another superstar.
So here's the thing. You know what's interesting with that? I was very surprised when watching that with some of the filmed interactions between Bubba and Michael, particularly at the end of the season, like when Bubba got eliminated.
Mhm.
I mean, Michael Jordan has a bit of a reputation, especially as we've gotten into the later years of, you start to hear a lot more stories that you weren't hearing about during his playing days about him, you know, not necessarily being the nicest guy in the world sometimes. um,
Mhm.
it's, people have said that they'll tell you some stories about, the way his trash talk on the court was one thing, about some of the ways he treated some other people, that he generally had that he wasn't necessarily the golden guy that
Mhm.
may have been portrayed in a lot of his ads and PR campaigns. And honestly, when they showed him coming out and going up to Bubba and basically just being like, "Hey, man, that's racing.
Right.
This happens. This is what goes on." I was surprised. I was kind of expecting to maybe see a little bit of that,
And no
maybe some of
excuses.
that nastiness.
No excuse.
Like,
And I don't think Mike has that mentality. I think Mike understands that this isn't basketball.
yeah,
That this isn't you could just go out there and be better than everybody, right?
right,
Like there's more to being successful. But I do believe, and again, maybe this isn't a 1 year hot seat, right? But I do think it's definitely tough because at first it was Kurt Busch on the team who was just there for moral support to help Bubba grow. Now Tyler Reddick's coming in,
yeah.
and Tyler's got 3 win seasons, and he's like, and then we knew everybody in there, and he didn't come over thinking, all right, Bubba's the better driver. We knew coming over that Tyler Reddick was going to be the better driver at 23XI. But I'm just kind of speculating on in terms of what seats I could see opening up. Bubba would go. He didn't win last year. He did win at Dega on a shortened rain race, and then he won pretty dominant fashion at Kansas. But he's won 0 races while still being in playoff contention. I love Bubba.
Right.
Y'all know this. If my guys wreck out, it's immediately to Bubba. I want to see him win race. I want to see
Sure.
him do well. I really like what he does for the sport. But eventually, in the same way with Bowman, dude, eventually you're gonna have to win some races and
Mhm.
start making deep playoff runs off of winning.
The spotlight's
races.
there.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
You have
think
a
you
spotlight.
I think you are both on drugs right now. He's the perfect guy to drive that car.
He
He's
is
not going
perfect. No. He's perfect.
Hold on.
He's perfect. But this is
like he's not going anywhere anytime soon.
all
dude.
right. So if
No
it-
way.
but if Toyo, all right. So if there's a shift, right? Respectfully, Coach Gibbs is only getting older, and also the tragic loss of his son. And I know his son had some leadership within Joe Gibbs. I'm very genuinely curious on what's going to happen, right? Because obviously Truex is gone. Bell is going to be the flagship car there, right? He's going to be the big guy. Obviously Gibbs is solid, but still a question mark. I think Denny's going to sense not the blood in the water, but like, hey, 23XI, we've got Tyler Reddick, who's a top 5 driver in Cup. Denny might jump ship and be, if they can land a charter, be top and maybe they buy it from fucking Joe Gibbs. Maybe they buy the 11 charter from Gibbs. So you got Denny.
I was gonna say, what if they went 3-3?
right.
Of course,
So
they're gonna buy the 11 from Gibbs, dude. That has to be in their plan.
right.
It
So
has to be.
so if you go Denny, Reddick, like yes, Bubba could be, but like if we remember this 2 seasons from now, Bubba again 2 seasons to say it's a warm seat. It's
Yeah.
a warm seat. It's a warm seat. I don't think
Okay.
that he's in immediate danger of being replaced, and he could very easily swing. I mean, if Bubba wins a 2-race win season this year, consider the point moot.
Right.
Consider
Well,
the
let's-
point moot.
We're speculating like a lot as far as this concerned. You said you had another person that you wanted to add.
Oh yeah. This guy, I don't even know. I would wager he doesn't last the whole season. But I think he's gone. The Harrison Burton in the 21.
Well, yeah. I think
Yeah.
everybody knows that's going.
I think
I was wondering if that was going to be the one. So that wasn't the person I was.
I'm curious.
thinking
So
about-
the other guy on my list is the 99.
Yeah.
Hey, there it is.
Suarez has to win a race.
I don't know what it is for anybody that's a new listener right now. You will catch us doing predictions, and somehow all the time, for some reason, Finn and I just like we just hit that point like it's just mind waves or something like that. Because we'll hit predictions, and whichever one of us goes first is bound to pick the other's prediction.
They
But
got an army of drivers under him now too.
right. So this is
I
what
mean,
I'm
SVG comes
wondering.
in and impresses, immediately they'll put him in the 99.
Boy, and it's to this same point. So here's the thing is that, in the same way that you start thinking about what 2311 could look like and could be, and like if things start like heating up because the spotlight keeps, shining, the money keeps flowing, things keep happening. Justin Marks is another guy that, I mean, he's gonna eventually want these. He's gonna want wins. He's gonna want that. Now he's shown an impressive loyalty to his drivers. So to his credit, that is what it is. But that's one thing that I was very curious about. The 99 was on that same plane of what you were talking about regarding a seat maybe getting warmer, something maybe in a multi-year down the line type of situation. I feel like the 99 fits that description a little more.
That 99
than just
seat is
about anybody.
way warmer than the 23.
Sure,
Way warmer.
absolutely.
Yeah, I would
absolutely.
agree. I would agree. I wanted to
yeah.
say the 99, and
Yeah.
part of that is because he's already had the 19. Like, people don't know that Daniel Suarez Rum won the Xfinity Championship, went up, drove for Gibbs, had pretty uneventful time at Gibbs. Then he ended up, where did he end up? Man, I can't remember off the dome where Suarez was racing or what he was racing for. Maybe it was a smaller ride, but either way, ends up with the track house stuff. Now, Pitbull and Justin Marks do like him, but yeah, I do think that that if their expectations is competing for championships, which Ross Chastain has done, then Daniel Suarez needs to figure some stuff out because he had a really good 2022, 2023, or other way around.
It was a
No,
non-factor all year.
Yeah, pretty much a non-factor. I didn't feel like there
It was Stuart Haas, by the way.
Was he with Stuart Haas?
He was with Stuart Haas, yes. The 41.
Daniel Suarez. Oh, okay. Okay. Maybe I was.
Yeah, this is when he was driving the 41.
Got you. Was that under Stuart Haas though? Maybe it was, and maybe my brain's tripping. I don't remember
Right.
him being a team. I
He
can't
was a
remember.
short
been
stint,
talking.
but yes.
We've been talking for an hour and a half, so
I
you get a little
remember
emotional
Cole
at this point.
Custer being the guy. So, all right. So one more point. What are you all most excited for this season? Corey first.
I got three quick ones. First one, new Mustangs. The new Mustangs look awesome. I'm excited to see if they actually perform in the regular season. That's kind of the thing I'm watching most. Second, going to a night race at Richmond. That's going to be awesome. Third, give me that Brickyard 400.
What you got, Jeff? You're muted.
You're muted, big fella.
Jeff is
You're
muted.
muted. Hey, you're muted,
Muted!
buddy. Hey, you're muted.
Can't
you're
hear
muted,
ya.
my guy.
There he is.
Oh
He-
no.
Hey,
Here we go.
I'm
I did
not-
it. I did the thing.
I'm not editing that
Oh
out.
man, I am ashamed. No, but to that,
I'm gonna
like,
dub
Corey took a
in.
couple
I
of
love
mine.
Jimmy Johnson. Jimmy Johnson's just so exciting to me.
Of course you would.
Dubbing it in. All right, go.
No, Yeah, Corey took a couple of mine because I'm genuine. Like I'm super hyped for night racing at Richmond. I'm excited to actually be there and witness that. That's going to be a lot of fun. Obviously the Brickyard, but I've made that pretty clear. I'm really excited. This is further down the line, but the hype is only going to continue to build and build. But as iRacing starts to make its way in development for the new NASCAR game, I'm very excited with all of the information that we keep getting about the way that they're adding more engineers. They are adding more muscle to the development of this game. They're using the Unreal Engine. There's other aspects of that I'm really excited about. So that's one thing. In regards to the actual racing season itself, I am very excited to see what happens with some of the tuning of the horsepower in the cars this year. I'm very excited to see some more tracks stand out a little more than they have in the past couple of years as things get tuned up for this generation of cars. And the other thing is, and this kind of touches on a little bit more in depth from Corey's original point, is I'm excited to see a little more variety in the cars. I'm excited to see somebody take a chance and do something different with the different shapes of the cars and try and play some of the aerodynamic game. I think that's going to be a lot of fun. I think that it could pave the way for some more excitement down the line. What about you, Finn?
Ooh, I'm excited to see if Chris Buescher.
Johnson.
What's up?
Jimmy Johnson.
Oh no, I was gonna say if Chris Buescher and this Roush Fenway Keselowski guys are for real.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
all season long it was just bouncing back between Byron and the Toyotas and a couple of good Larson races and Reddick winning, and all of a sudden Chris Buescher's the hottest thing on the planet.
Some guy from Prosper, Texas.
So I'm excited to see how they improve as they enter year 3 under Keselowski's leadership. So I'm excited for that. Pair that with maybe a good Ford Mustang body aero-wise, and we might be looking at some dark horse championship contenders. I want to see Brad Keselowski win a race this year. So if the Lions can get
Dark Horse
good out
is the name of the car.
Huh?
Dark Horse is the name of the car.
Right.
Yeah.
The Larson double, right? We get to watch
that's
Kyle
cool.
Larson race the Indy 500 and then fly the same day to Charlotte, and we'll be at that race, and we're going to be drunk as hell all day because we're going to get up early and drink and be it there. So I'm excited for that weekend and the vlog that we're going to have for that. And then, of course, Jimmy Jam.
Jimmy Jam.
I'm always happy to see. We have to keep playing this game with Corey of what it used to look like, and of course he could just go watch the races and see. But if Jimmy's down for real, and they've got that Toyota speed at 1.5 miles, don't be surprised if he wins one.
I
would love
well,
to see
so
it.
that brings up a couple other things too, as far as excitement. I mean, I'm glad you brought up the double because that's going to be a lot of fun, and I want to see a little more of the NASCAR and Indy mesh. I'd like to see a little bit more of that. I'd like to see some Indy drivers maybe hop behind the wheel of a stock car, and I'd like to see some NASCAR drivers get out and take a crack at open wheel here and there. And just the double itself is such an insane feat that I'm excited to see Kyle give it a shot. But yeah, I think that we got a lot to look forward to this year. In regards to, what we were talking about with getting Corey in on some stuff, I think something that we could potentially do if there's a demand for it this year is, since NASCAR did the NASCAR Classics thing last year, where they did all of these classic races and released the video to the public. I wouldn't be opposed to maybe we jump on and do some watch-alongs this year if anybody would be interested in that. We can jump in and watch some of the other stuff and kind of give some takes on famous races and things. I'm always down for that. So maybe that can be another piece of some of the historical aspect. But yeah, I think that we're in for an exciting season this year. But with that,
I got one more. Hold on. No context. Who wins the Daytona 500? No context. Finn?
Jimmy Johnson.
Lock
it in.
There it is.
Jimmy Jam.
There it is. He throws it out there. He says the thing. Yeah, see, for me on that, I just kind of have to feel like it's going to be I think that there's going to be the same chaos and stuff that we generally get excited for. I'm going to go with John Hunter Nemechek makes a splash on his first thing, runs through the chaos, gets to the front, and wins a Daytona 500.
All right, 2 Legacy Motor Club. Are you going to go Eric Jones?
Bubba Wallace. Bubba
Wallace.
Bubba Wallace.
I can get with
Okay.
Bubba.
All right, take us out, big dog.
All right. Yeah. Well, that's going to wrap it up for us. Wow, it's been a while since I've done this one. All right. Please make sure you check us out on YouTube, Spotify, under the name Intentional Rec. Like, share, subscribe, tell all your friends. You can also find us on Twitter and TikTok at IntRecPod. That's at IntRecPod. We're also going to bring back the mailbag this year. So please submit some questions. Please reach out, talk to us, like, comment, all that kind of good stuff. All of those links and info will be in the description. Find us, follow us. Let's talk some racing this year.